Hello, everybody, and welcome to Signal, our weekly show where we curate the latest news across AI, tech, and the future of work. And today I have the pleasure to work with two of the smartest individuals of Nova, of our team. And we have here Christian, our dear CPO. Christian, how are you?
Thank you, Ramon. Very happy to be here. I was in one of the first episodes.
Yeah, second time. Second time for you. And then we have our dear Jesus Copado, who is our head of AI. He was in the Spanish podcast, but I believe not yet in Signal, right?
Exactly. No, yeah, this is my first time. Maybe more to come.
I hope so. So welcome to you as well. Before we jump into curating some of the news of the week that we were discussing just before, maybe, Christian, we can get started with a few of the cool releases that we have been doing from product and AI at Nova. Do you want to summarize a few of the highlights of the last few weeks that we have been working on?
Sure. Yeah, it's been really amazing weeks because since we launched to the public Nova Recruiter, I think it was 3 weeks ago, more or less.
A month already, actually, but time flies.
Well, it came with amazing features. I think the main release that we've done in this month was the AI shortlisting agents, which was basically an agent that does the shortlist for you after creating a talent search. Okay, so it's not just about objective parameters, but it also is able to get into subjective details and find who are the really great candidates for a search that you're working on. That was the main release, I think. But for example, then we did the AI reply builder, which is when you get responses from candidates, we're able to create a draft for you to send them. So I was today gathering feedback from customers and so on, and that was the most favorite feature, which was great.
AI replies. Nice.
Yeah. It's great, and the feedback that I received that I love is that no one is changing the option that we provide. So we provide a really good feedback, and they are going directly with the suggestion that we provide. So that was a really cool feature. We are now about to release also something really good that we've been working on in the AI and data team, which is industry selection. So you are able to say, okay, I want candidates who are working on fintech companies, or I want candidates who are working on cybersecurity startups, and so on. But it's not only about this, which this is already good, but this is kind of what the other players have in the market.
It's a standard, right? That you expect this from a recruitment product.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what most of our competitors has. We're going one step further, which is creating different talent tiers within each industry. So it's like, okay, I'm looking for someone on fintech, but I'm looking for someone on the best fintech companies, or in the tier 1 and tier 2 fintech companies, or any fintech companies, because at the end of the day, most of the searches come with that kind of idea. When we have clients looking for consultants, that many times they're like, okay, but I wanted someone from MBB.
I want from the very best, no? Because in the reality, I think we're moving to a world of polarization, right? So you really, typically if you use a product like ours, is because you're most often not looking for someone top-notch. So understanding who are the top-notch within an industry, I think there's a lot of value in that, and LinkedIn and others are nowhere close to provide that kind of insight. Walk us through what I believe was one of the coolest features, or one of the coolest developments, actually, is that you mentioned the AI shortlisting feature, which is super cool. And actually, I believe since we have that, I think the whole way in which we show or demo the product, people are like, wow, because you can really understand how you're saving hours in reviewing hundreds of CVs and just getting the top and getting an explanation of why. But I remember when we released the feature, there was this kind of fear, right, in the management of tech and AI on, okay, what's the cost of this? Like, are we going to make any money out of this product if we are spending a lot of money on the shortlisting? But then you guys just came up with a very nice kind of eval process where you analyze basically a lot of models and came up with a solution that was not only faster but more accurate and also kind of 10x or 20x cheaper. Jesus, I believe you are the mastermind behind this. Can you kind of explain the audience how do you go from, okay, just I use a frontier model just to get a good product out there, to how can I optimize it to really fits a business case and I can make good unit economics out of a feature like this?
Yeah, and I think it's critical, and I think I already flagged it. So I think we, as always, right, we're in a startup, fast-paced environment. We know all that, and we wanted this feature to come with the first release on the Recruiter, right, like last month. So we really pushed it, and we really were able to get it because of the intelligence of these models, right? We went almost for a frontier model. I think I can tell it, right? I can tell names and so on.
Yeah,
so
you can put the names.
Yeah, I can just put names to everything. So we went for Claude Sonnet 4.6, and that, with that intelligence, right, and the reasoning and so on, and just a couple, so some tweaks, we were able to get like this model to really perform well on this task, right? Which is what I was explaining, right? Getting these nuanced, these details that are not structured, not Boolean, right? You cannot just get that with just simple regex or math. This is something that needs to be really observed in the profile, right? So Sonnet
what I call the recruiter eye. Like when an expert recruiter checks a CV and he or she knows if it's a fit, that's what we're trying to replicate, right? Which is not it's not an algorithm that you can say, more than this here, less than this there. No, it's way more complex. It's not a filter.
Exactly. And we were able to go from this kind of like, this is more or less what we want. Let's put this in a prompt, right? Because AI engineering in the end is just a lot of context engineering, a lot of prompt engineering. So prompt engineering and context engineering. So the prompt was just kind of like, okay, this is more or less working because we have all this intelligence. Let's just ship it. We know that the cost per tech is a lot. So this wouldn't scale, right? Due to their pricing and so on. We cannot afford ourselves to have. So we would die of success, right? If somehow like we get like 1 million clients, this wouldn't go well. But what happened is that once we have this, or the strategy here was to create an eval data set. So that is, you get a domain expert to really label, to really assess, right? To have that critical eye. So that thing that is very difficult to assess, let's just try to put it on 10, 20, 50, 100 examples, right? A set of, this is the input, this is the expected output based on a human or an expert, right? So once we do that, so in this case, it was Javi, right, from the product team, which also has a lot of experience in recruiting. So he really was able to deliver a really nice data set with a lot of iteration with Cloud Code and a lot of work. So kudos to Javi. So once I got all this data, then my task was okay, let me try to build some quantitative analysis, right? Some quantitative metrics and some qualitative metrics, right? So here, there is something that you call LLM as a judge, which is, let's just use an LLM, maybe in this case, a frontier or a more intelligent model, to really have this kind of like, okay, this is what the small model is saying. Let's see if the big model agrees with the decision of the small model, right? So this is going to give you the kind of like the quality, the qualitative assessment. And this is the beautiful thing about LLMs. So now the qualitative analysis doesn't need to be done by a human. And of course, the quantitative analysis is that some of these things can be kind of like classified into yes or no, or into a number. So then all these quantitative metrics can be directly get kind of like analyzed with a number. So then mixing those qualitative and quantitative analysis, we were able to go from these frontier models, super intelligent, but also super expensive and slow and so on. So we were able to just assess many different models, open source, closed source, bigger, smaller. I think I evaluated around 12 different models over a week or 2 weeks.
So those models were basically running through the data set that Javi had created, which was a set of candidates and a shortlist kind of parameters. And then who would be the one, the actual chosen ones? That
is closest to what the human would have rated, right? So then this is just something, right? So, but at the same time, what you're doing actually is just reverse engineering, right? So you know where you want to get. So now let's try to kind of like engineer the prompt so that we get to that. So let's just put a lot of rules. Let's just put one thing that you call few-shot prompting, which is examples, right? So you said, okay, these are the nuance. This kind of like, this is the gray areas. Let me be clear. Let me be specific about those gray areas. And then of course, this is a lot of engineering and AI engineering into, okay, I need to be aware of the context. I need to be aware I cannot just put like 1,000 examples. I need to put like a few examples, not redundant, not too much. So there's a lot of work here.
So it's a combination of mainly the quality of the prompt and the model, right? So what you're optimizing is for the
Context, prompt, and
the optimal prompt plus some engineering. What is the output you can get on that kind of eval that you say both quantitative and qualitative, right?
Exactly. And the results were really good. Like we improved the accuracy of this frontier model with this vague prompt that we started with. So by having this much better prompt, more specific, we already were able to get better accuracy, so better results on both those quantitative and qualitative metrics on smaller models. And yeah, so I think 2.5 times the accuracy. And I think the most important thing for us to scale really is just the cost. I think it's more or less of course, this prompt is now bigger, right? Because the first one was very vague. Now it's not so vague. So now maybe the prompt is 2 or 3 times the size. So then that, of course, I think you know already how the cost of this LLM inference works. So you have the input tokens and the output tokens. So now the input tokens are bigger. So now just going over that is gonna cost more. But the whole output tokens and the whole equation in terms of computation of tokens results in the whole process taking or costing 15 times less. So that
is another order of magnitude, which we are comfortable with that cost. I think it's a very cool use case, and actually brings me to one of the pieces of news, and then we'll be back to Nova for a minute. But there was this piece of news by Andreessen, this analysis that was done by Andreessen when he spoke with the LPs, where basically he argued that, since frontier models are moving so quickly and, there's so many use cases where, let's say, off the shelf or more compressed or Chinese cheaper models that you can run on premise are intelligent enough. Basically, the margins or the durable moat and defensibility was more at the workflow and at the deep domain expertise and the data expertise. I think this is a very concrete example, right? Because if you were to give Opus 4.7 or whatever, the same long list of candidates, and a recruiter would give the same kind of criteria, it would actually probably work less well and expend much more money, right, than us having this very well researched and created workflow proprietary with a cheaper model, right? I think this is a very good example of what Mark Andreessen was arguing. No?
Yeah, and then you even have the option, which takes more AI engineering, which is to fine-tune a model. And you can do that with these small models, but this has some pros and cons. In this case, we still haven't explored that, but we might. And that is even cheaper because now, if you fine-tune a model, now these rules or all these kind of
there's no input, no? The input tokens go down, no?
It's already on the exactly. So that's the whole idea. So then it could even be cheaper if you fine-tune a model. But yeah, it is not as. So it has pros and cons.
That's an interesting thing because a couple of years ago, I used to listen a lot to the fine-tuning concept. And for example, OpenAI was doing a lot of releases that were allowing you to do fine-tuning and so on. But in my case, I hear every time I hear less times the concept of fine-tuning. I don't know, Jesus, if that's something that you have also feel, or it's only my case. But I don't know. I think that with the overloading of new models and so on, and the intelligence they are getting, companies are not doing the fine-tuning exercise that much right now.
I think it depends. I think it really depends. If you have the cash, if you want velocity, of course, if you really want to scale, take a look now at Cursor. Cursor just released Composer 2.5 last week or 2 weeks ago. And it's a fine-tuned model of a Chinese model called Kimi 2.5. And that's a really good example of fine-tuning. Now you have a model that is tiny. I think it's like 20 times as small. So it's smaller than Opus 4.7. It's almost as good as writing code. So for Cursor, if you really want to scale, if you have
the
so many million,
of Cursor,
the volume really says, okay, now I do need to fine-tune a model.
No, I've heard the same.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Code, yeah.
Sorry, Jesus. I was cutting. I was saying that I've heard the same, that for a couple of years, Christian, like you, I think that everybody was just playing with context and models. But now it's not the first time where I hear that if you fine-tune a chip in on-premise, or not on-premise, but let's say, open source model. There's use cases where if you have enough scale, that might be a good trick. But yeah, I think most people are still just prompting well, and I think that you can get almost the same quality of solution. I think it's a matter of cost, right? In the end.
Yep. Probably in this case, right, since it takes like in this a very specific case of code, which is more difficult, it's just not like a classification like yes or no, or this fits or this doesn't fit. I think it wouldn't be so easy to get as good code only from prompt engineering. I think it wouldn't even work. So I think it really depends on the use case.
Mm-hmm. Any changes or any tweaks to how we are working on product tech and AI? Because I feel that the product team is starting to actually contribute, to actually building stuff, not so much as into shipping software to production, but I believe there's kind of a new way in which we are working that is cool, in which product is not only doing the research or the prioritization, but it's actually being a key part in the features that we ship. No? Can you walk us through that, Christian, a little bit?
Yeah, totally. I think that the best example for this would be the feature that I mentioned about the industries. If you take this project some years ago, product would have been doing some kind of definition and sending requirements to a data team and so on. But in this case, it was totally different. So the product team created the repository for start playing around with the data. We did a strategic definition about which kind of industries we were going to have, which kind of tiers and so on, like the business stuff. But then we didn't get there. We went the further step, which was actually going through the data, actually treating the data, actually like sending the data to the Anthropic APIs and testing like with different models, and we were improving the prompts that we were using and so on. So we created the first version of all the data tagging. So our first deliverable to the data team was, okay, here you have like a DB of 200,000 companies with all their tiers, with all their industries and so on. And then with that handover, now the data team is opening a much bigger project, which is an actual data infrastructure that work, a pipeline of updating that data, some workflows in order to allow us to edit if we want to make solve a mistaken and data point and so on. But we get into the kitchen, as we say in Spain, and we did the first version the whole by our side.
I think that's pretty cool. So go ahead.
And it allows us to go so much faster to be able to do these things, and it's incredible.
For example, now also, for example, the website project is going to be something that I wouldn't have expected like 1 year ago at all. We used to work with Webflow, as many other companies. We're not gonna do good marketing for Webflow in this podcast because we weren't that happy about how it was working, the price and so on. But I mean, not that much about the product itself, but more about how difficult was changing stuff,
the ownership, right? The ownership of who actually can.
Totally, because from our side, we wanted the design team to be able to change it and so on. But many things require like low code knowledge. And for example, if you want to make a screen that calls an endpoint and something like that, like a very easy endpoint and very easy use case, it was very difficult to do it from the design team and so on. So we're moving also the whole project end to end to the product team. We're gonna be actually the tech team is gonna help us creating the repository and the base project, scaffolding project of the new website.
The guardrails and the CI/CD, all that is super important.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's gonna be end to end delivered by the product team. So the product team right now is a production team, which is cool. It used to be that much.
Totally. No, I think what's cool is that, for instance, when all the business logic in behind the categorization of companies is 10x better done by product and AI, because in product we have subject matter experts, or they can have, or people who can talk to subject matter experts to verify that whatever we're doing is well done. Whereas if it was the data team doing that work, I don't think it's an efficient use of the Jesus and Felipe and that kind of resource. So I fully agree. I think at the same time, it's probably not, if code is cheap, probably the best use case of product teams is not actually shipping code to production. In features in the Nova Recruiter, I think that doesn't make sense. I think it's either shipping MVPs and validating stuff so that we then optimize the resource of product of tech and AI. And then also being, as you guys are doing, kind of creating all of the side projects, side things, data, all of the other stuff that tech and AI can do, so that we ship things faster and better. No, I think the website or the database that you guys produce is a cool example. Anything on how we are working? Like, are you guys still anything on your more productivity? I think I'm getting these questions every day. Like whenever I go to unis and so on to give sessions, and I talk about AI fluency, and I tell people a little bit how we work at Nova with Claude and so on. Is there any kind of recent changes to your personal workflows, to how you're interacting with dictation apps, or how you're setting up your the way you work? Are you still on the terminal? Did you switch to the desktop app? How, any changes from the last time you came to a show with me?
You go, Christian.
From my side, I have to say that I have no changes, which is good, I think, because at the beginning of the year, I tried everything. I tried moving to OpenAI, OpenClaw. I tried Claude. I tried a lot of new things. And I have to say that now I'm very, very happy with my setup. I feel like super, super productive. So I'm staying. The only change that I did, as you mentioned, is I've been playing a lot with for context, I always work with Cloud Code, and I always use my voice. Those are the two main things of my stack. Voice, which I usually use Whisperflow, and Cloud Code. I used to work with the terminal. I used to work with Cursor, just because I knew Cursor and it worked well on the Cursor terminal. But now I've been a lot playing around with the new interface of Cloud Code, the desktop app, and it feels really good. Also, as I've been doing training for the internal team and so on, I think it's going to be way easier to bring people into the Cloud Code app than moving people to the terminal, for sure. As an example, in order to use the Cloud Desktop app for a Mac user, you don't have to download anything. You just download the desktop app, and that's the whole thing that you need to do. Then you can ask Claude, and you're all set. If you're a Microsoft user, then you need to install
few things on the terminal. Node and Git.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, that's a bit of a struggle, not a big one, but probably for a non-technical user, they can suffer a bit. They can get frustrated. But yeah, I recommend using the desktop app.
Yeah, myself on that. For instance, there's one very small thing that I utilize a lot on the app that I was not able to use on the Windows terminal, which is copy pasting screenshots. That's very easy to do on the app. On the terminal, at least on the Windows terminal, there's not an easy way to do that. Like, you have to paste it somewhere, download it, and then reference with the, so it takes a few clicks. This is just pasting. And this is for one very use case.
On Mac, you can, but it's a different, so it's not Command V, it's Control V, which is, once you know it, you know it. I'm still sticking to terminal, but because I'm kind of like terminal native, in the sense of I've been using terminal for so many years that I already feel very comfortable there, and I can just quickly open a new tab and kind of like browse through my my, I don't know, open cursor on a specific folder, and I can do that just very quickly from the terminal. So I'm still sticking to terminal. What I've changed is I'm not multitasking so much. I think my brain was telling me this is not sustainable. You gotta chill.
So you're not having 7-8 sessions in parallel anymore.
No.
It's more like 2-3 or what?
I think it was sustainable. I'm down to 2 or 3.
Yeah, I've never found myself actually being productive on more than 3 or 4, because I always had to reread what am I talking about and just getting the context back, which is not super productive, no? When you have to catch up with context very quickly.
Yeah, and I think now maybe since they are a bit more intelligent and also, well, intelligence we gotta see, because I think Opus 4.6 was maybe more intelligent than 4.7, but in the sense of like now I feel like they can work for longer. They ask maybe like longer questions. So now I need to make more decisions, and as I like to say, think harder per session. So I cannot think hard 7 times in parallel. I can only think hard 3 times.
For example,
Cool.
in your case, are you thinking about moving to codecs and GPT models and so on?
I think it would be smart in terms of money, but I'm honestly I'm a bit lazy to do it. But I know for a fact that a lot of people are moving to codecs because it's cheaper right now, and the model is better. So in terms of code quality, is a little bit better.
Because the max, or kind of equivalent to max, is €100, no, on GPT, and you can utilize it on OpenClaw, and this is actually a plus that Anthropic is always requiring you to utilize the key. I believe that the fact that you can utilize your subscription of OpenAI is a plus. I'm tempted myself to also try it out. I haven't, but I think it's something I'll definitely try out. I don't know how good is GPT 5.4, 5.5 on, let's say, general tasks, not only coding.
I think for writing emails and for kind of like creative writing, I think it's also a bit better, but tool use is more or less the same. I think it's more or less the same, honestly. But one is going to be like a bit more, it's going to take more time to really think about it. I think that's the case of GPT. But maybe with one, you're going to iterate 2 or 3 times, but I think more or less in the same time, you're going to get to the same result, more or less. So we'll see.
Cool. And moving on to the release of Node Recruiter before we jump onto the news. And then, so this is the final one. Christian, probably the best lead magnet we have created, and the best way to acquire users was actually a course you built. So the course is called Become an AI Recruiter. We discussed it with Andrea last week. But since you were the creator and you have become quite viral on LinkedIn thanks to it, just walk us through, how did you actually build it? What does it take? I think it's a very, very good example of the CPO of a startup, just building end-to-end something with very, very little support from anybody, and making it the biggest marketing breakthrough in the last few months.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna be very honest with the story, because this started because internally everyone was asking about support with Cloud Code, and we as managers, we were pushing a lot to move to Cloud Code. So I was like, okay, I think I can build some kind of training for people in order to get used to the Cloud Code platform. Then I started working on the course. I have all the content and so on. And I started thinking wow, I think I can make money with this course. So I built a platform that was called Cloud 10X.
It's still there, no? If you look it up on Google, it appears, I believe.
It's still there. I mean, I kind of leave it on hold, but I was I built it. I told you, and I told Andrea and everyone that I was going to release it. I was just finalizing the latest details. But then we were on the management offsite, and we came with the idea of, wow, if we build this course for recruiters, they're going to love it, because we can include skills, we can include the connection to the Nova MCP, we can include the connection to their ATS and so on. And I loved so much the idea. So it was okay, so let's leave my project on hold. let's work on this
So
new
you
one.
did a fork and then changed everything, no?
Like, literally, I forked my project because it was everything on GitHub, and I started like working hard on this. It was really cool because now with the AI, you can do like an end-to-end project that covers like many different like skills, departments, whatever, all on your own. Like for example, I start like building the content, and I got a lot of support from the AI on how this could work for HR people, and I build a lot of examples, exercise, and so on, just with the AI without being annoying to the internal team. Then, for example, I had to build a website, and I didn't require anything from the design team. I went to Cloud Design. I started building this. The website actually looks like really cool. It has like an animation that I got like so excited about. Then it was also like, okay, I want to make a certificate so people can start like sharing the certificate. I also built it with Cloud Design. It was also a really cool certificate. Like people are sending it on LinkedIn now and so on. And then like everything as this, like for example, the script for the video, the LinkedIn post, and so on. I also got some support on very specific things, like for example, editing the final video, because I didn't think that it was efficient to like be editing like all the videos by myself. But I really like the concept of creating AI recruiters. I think that's something really powerful. I think people want to get up to date. We are like on LinkedIn seeing news of how like crazy things are people doing with AI, and I know that recruiters want to stay on the like the latest. So it worked like really well. And
did you reach already the 2,000 comments on the post?
I mean, I don't know the last count of comments, but it was. I mean,
but it's not too far, because my post that was behind yours on the same course is already about, I think it was this morning, about 1,400
wow,
comments on my post, which is kind of released the day after yours. So
yeah, it was crazy. I remember
crazy.
The first 2 days, it was really difficult to reply because I was receiving requests faster than I could reply people. And then I mean,
my only contribution to the course was to actually give you a code from Claude to automate the replies and automate the gathering of the emails.
Exactly.
That's my contribution.
Totally. And I'm receiving a lot of messages now from people who are completing it. That it's making me like feel like super happy. Like people who want their team to have access, people who have shared it with their managers, and they are now pushing in order to get cloud code licenses and so on. And I think we want to go further with this, like building webinars or training companies, whatever. Now we are
very cool. No, congrats. Impressive. And this actually brings me to one of the pieces of news that we didn't cover precisely last week with Andrea, which is there was this, I think there was a post by Elena Berna, who is an ex-VP at multiple big tech, Miro, Dropbox, and the like, that basically she was arguing that since AI is putting a lot of pressure on the middle management of, companies, basically, now with AI, people like you that are curious, smart, and driven can do end-to-end projects with massive impact. So the whole layer of mid management, where you're simply transferring information up and down, is no longer very much needed. And this desire of people to want to simply grow their careers as in managing lots of people, I don't think that's the future. The future is in being, most of the people being great ICs, doing more sales or doing more product or better AI. And I think it's pretty accurate to what I'm seeing. Like the future of work, like for the audience, if your aspiration is to simply manage a lot of humans, it doesn't look like the world that I'm seeing. Your aspiration has to be great at doing something, whatever it is that you like, but actually with business value, right? So either building or selling, or marketing if you wish, which is similar to selling, but there's nothing else. Build or distribute. That's it.
I agree. I don't know how this looks like in like huge corporates, probably different. But in our scale and also bigger scales, I feel that it's completely like that. I mean, if you have a great view on the strategy of the company and you have a great AI literacy, you have tools to have like different specialists with AI agents. So you can build like huge things, right? And it's probably not that efficient that you are just coaching 6-7 people and managing to get them unblocked and so on. You must be also in the field. You must be also in the battle. So I don't think that a manager can now be working without be pushing or like working directly on a key project for the company. Like if you're a manager and you're not building something strategic for the company, there's something wrong there. That's my point of view.
No, totally. Yeah. If you're 1,000 or a few thousand people, you do need some kind of layers. But as you say, managers are first ICs, and second, they also coach very more junior people. And Jesus, this has been actually very relevant. We discussed with Andrea last week on Anthropic, right? Because they have hired Karpathy and many other old big managers that now are ICs working on cool projects. I don't know how you view like someone like you. Is this, how did you, in your career, did you envision to go and lead a lot of people? Or were you more of an IC? And how are you, in that spectrum?
I think this is dream scenario for me, because I always wanted to be like hands-on and but still I like leading people. So I think this is the best thing for me. So I'm happy that the world is talking like this.
Totally. Okay, so then let's jump into more news. What anything, Jesus, on your side, anything that you found relevant in the last week for the audience that people should know about on big tech, on future work, whatever was relevant in your opinion?
We commented a couple of things before. Christian, what was it that we talk about?
We were commenting about this new.
Oh yeah, also the GPT-5. So the mathematical breakthrough that GPT-5.5 did, right? I think that's a crazy thing. That's a crazy thing to know. And yeah, we were discussing it, the three of us, just a bit before actually enjoying this call, which is that maybe this kind of like breaks that that stigma that all these models are not intelligent, all these models are not creative because they cannot create new solutions. Well, there you have a new solution to a problem that hasn't been solved or kind of validated for like 70 years, something like that. So it was just kind of like left there, a very difficult geometrical problem, and now it has been done. So a new solution, innovative solution from a model, and then an expert has already said like, yeah, this is a breakthrough, this is crazy. So
yeah, so just for context, there was this this problem called Erdos geometry problem, that basically nobody has been able to solve, and basically an AI utilized a number theory kind of solution to it that no human had tried, and basically it's for the first time kind of the solution to a relevant big problem that nobody had done that AI is able to do, and it has gone into the annals of mathematics. So yeah, I fully agree with you. What you say, Jesus, like whenever we discuss about creativity, to me, creativity is in many cases applying analogies, like solution is somewhere, you apply it elsewhere. This is the perfect example, and AI is very capable of doing this.
It's interesting because a couple of years ago, it didn't seem like LLMs were going to be good at maths, and also if like on LinkedIn there were like viral posts of crazy math mistakes of the GPT and so on. Also, we have this view that LLMs were not going to be like the final boss in terms of AGI, and I don't think that's been the case. I think LLM improvements are demonstrating that they can be the path to AGI or whatever AGI means.
And it's through agents, right? So it's not that the LLM by itself is able to produce all these mathematical things. It's just that the LLM is able to think, to reason, and then use tools and or use code and use all those things to actually get to the solution, right? So I think it's in this agentic nature of the systems that we're building where we are getting these breakthroughs in intelligence.
Exactly, because the thing is that it's not the LLM doing the math. Probably the LLM is producing some kind of code that runs math, no? Some kind of Python or whatever, no? That's how I imagine it, right? And that's why they have become actually good at doing numbers. Yeah, totally. And the reality is that still today, we see that the more compute, the more intelligence we get. So there's no reason for now to believe that this is plateauing. I remember, I think it was actually Anthropic, actually probably a couple of years ago, that they were saying like, yeah, AGI is not a matter of compute. We have to get back to the research, and it's a question of math, But then now the argument is the opposite. It's just more compute, because it's proving that the more compute.
It's still a mix of both, right? But it's still a mix of both, because these labs are not only putting more compute into it, they are still fine-tuning, tweaking, making some tricks on context, on key so all these internal things of these models are being optimized all the time. So there's a mix of both, I think. But it's true that LLMs and kind of like the transformer architecture as it is, or as the base of it, as a building block, is sufficient with all those tricks that we're doing. But I think it's already intelligent enough. And for me, this is intelligence. For me, this is creativity.
Christian, pieces of news on your side that were relevant the last few days.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited about the release of Mythos, the new Anthropic model. I don't know if there is any like expected timeline of release. I don't think so. But we've been having some interesting news about the model being able to hack a Mac, which is like crazy. And that feeling of all the noise that Anthropic created like a couple of months ago regarding how dangerous was the new model, that feeling of, wow, probably it's not marketing, probably they were right. And it's true. I have some friends working on banking on the security departments, and they've been telling me, no, we're like super scared. Like we have people working on this kind of vulnerabilities. We have people communicating with the model companies, because it feels that it's true that these new models are going to be able to be dangerous for cybersecurity.
Imagine if they are able to do that, what won't they do on? Because it's not they are not created specifically for cybersecurity, no? Mythos is a generalist model, so imagine it building agents for whatever. So it's going to be amazing. In my case, I think probably one of the biggest pieces of news of this last week is the IPO of SpaceX, which, as you know, is a combination today of Starlink, the satellite company providing internet that's doing about 11 billion a year, and it's profitable. Launch, as they call it, which is the old SpaceX, so shipping rockets to the moon or whatever. That's doing about 5 billion run rate. 5 billion in the quarter one. Yeah, it was something like that. No, I think it's 5 billion last year, something like this. And then they have now XAI that does something like 3 billion, which is very small, actually. It's like very, very small if you think about it compared to Anthropic and OpenAI is a tenth. And they have all the ad revenue, I believe, from Twitter. So it's probably, if you just take probably the AI part, is most likely very, very tiny. So in total, the company is doing something like 20 billion. And it's going to go on the stock exchange for 1.75 trillion, which is a multiple of, let's say, roughly almost 100 times revenue, which is quite crazy. I mean, it's quite expensive. Elon, as always, is very able to market things expensive. But it's going to be challenging because it's a huge valuation. They're going to be selling 75 billion worth of stock. So they're not going to be diluting by much, not even 10%. Wow. So it's going to be something like 5%, or not even 5%. If I do the number correctly, it's 4%, right? Something like this. And yeah, let's see where this goes. the problem, as always, when you raise very expensive money, is that you have to catch up. I mean, they need to grow that revenue very fast. Otherwise, the market will penalize it. So, yeah, I don't know what's your view, guys, on the future of Grok or XAI. Have you guys used it at all? Do you think do they have any space in this arena?
Well, I think the models are good. When you see the benchmarks and so on, they're like frontier models. They're good enough. I think they don't have like a good platform in order to showcase. And I guess that's the reason why there was this news about XAI buying Cursor. I think that would be a really good platform in order to get real usage for the models. And in that case, I would see definitely like people coding and doing like the stuff that we do now with Claude, with the Grok models. So that would be my point of view. I think they're missing the platform.
Maybe. I think there's the other thing, which I think Elon is actually, right? That's his biggest thing, which is X, right? X as in general X, which would be like this, the all-in-all app, right? So I think maybe he's pushing for that, right? By getting all these I think he's hiring like just crazy smart people, and for a lot of money as well from a lot of companies, Cursor as well. He's poaching people from all those big labs. And I think that's actually what he wants to build. And I think that's going to be the future, right? In a couple of years, we are all going to be consuming everything and through an AI, right? So maybe he gets first in building this all-in-all platform, right? Which is an agent that does everything for you and is proactive, and kind of like what Gemini is doing directly in Android, what ChatGPT is also going forward, integrating Amazon, eBay, and then you can just do everything, right, from the app. So maybe X can try and push it that way.
Yeah, but distribution is hard for them, because if I had to bet in between Google and them, it's easier for me as a company, at least, to switch to Google. Also, as a user, Android is a better platform, just X as Twitter, right? To expand. No, you have the hardware. So yeah, let's see where this space. Where they have been very active though is they have their own metal. No, they have their own cloud. No, right? And I believe they have a big deal with Anthropic where they sell compute. No, I don't know if they have their own cloud, but at least they're able to sell compute.
I think it's yeah, exactly. So they have a lot of
yeah, exactly. They don't do chips, centers. But they have data centers, and I believe they have a deal something like 30 billion or 50 billion over the next few years with Anthropic. So in the end, it looks like, as always, if you go down on you verticalize them more, there might be the solution for them to be able to generate more revenue.
Let's see.
More things that anything else that was relevant from last week from any of you guys? Anything you want to point out? I have a few more in my case, but let's listen to yours.
Which one do you have, Ramon?
Yeah, go for it.
I can go first. Maybe if we go back to future of work, and then I have a couple more on big tech. But if we go back to future of work, there was a EU directive called Pay Transparency. I think it was a couple of years ago. Basically, the classical on job ads need to have a salary, right? This has been a big debate. I remember with Christian debating on whether we should put it compulsory or not on the platform. Mm-hmm. As in the end, we ended up not having them compulsory, but by law or by the EU, that should happen actually next week. But the problem is that most countries haven't regulated what happens if you don't comply with it. So there's basically, if you don't, abide to the law, there's nothing that happens to you still in most countries, other than, I believe, Slovakia and probably Italy. But basically, the EU directive, what it says is that any job offer needs to come in with the salary range, the minimum salary range, and you need to know that before the first interview, which I believe is totally fair, right? Like if you wouldn't go to the supermarket, take a product from the, from the counter, and then just go and just discover at checkout what was the price, right? That doesn't happen in other sectors, but yeah, I believe it's an interesting thing that's happening, and I hope that the EU is somehow able to push this forward, because I believe it's how it should be.
And what would that change? What would be the implications of that? Do you think that would maybe like equalize salaries across Europe, or somehow like
I think it's
tighten
going to make
gap?
the market more transparent. I think there's a lot of productivity. I think there's a lot of chit chat back and forth, recruiter, candidate, due to simply lack of transparency. So I hope that this simply avoids a lot of not useful conversations. I think it's probably very hard to point out at a very single case like what's the impact, but if we were able to look systemically at the EU as a economy, I believe there's less waste of you and me not understanding each other and spending a lot of hours in unproductive calls because you believe the salary is something and I want to pay something else, and then we find out after 3 interviews.
Yeah, and a lot of information from candidates. We've been there, like on process where you don't know the salary. It makes no sense. Like, yeah, what's gonna be the gain of hiding the? But the truth is that we've been pushing a lot in order to get like salaries in all our positions, and not all clients want salaries to be included.
This is to me one of those few cases where regulation can actually make markets better. Like, it's not always, no, I'm typically quite against over regulation. I think in the EU we are the perfect example of what not to do with regulation most often than not. But in this specific case, I think it's actually a very good, very good directive. Christian, on your side, anything else?
Not really. I think we cover all what I wanted to mention.
Maybe a last one on my case on big tech. There was the I/O, which is the annual conference of Google, and there were a bunch of news. I think one of the ones that I found more relevant is that as a company, they have utilized, or through Google, there has been 7x more tokens processed, which is a big growth year on year. We were discussing with Jesus that it's probably not only a mix of more usage, but also smarter models that consume more tokens. But in the end, as per compute and for the amount of data centers that you need, this is still 7x the load, which I believe was relevant to understand where the world is going. It's no longer software eating the world, but AI is eating the world, basically. And then the CEO was mentioning that he believes by 2030, this AGI concept, which is hard to get a good definition, right? But he was the first hyperscaler CEO to mention a specific year, and he believes 2030 is going to be the year where we get AGI, whatever that means. So yeah, let's see.
Looking forward.
For me, I think so that really depends on the definition of AGI, right? I think I already. For me, it's gonna be closer. For me, AGI, as in generally, I think it's gonna be 2027. I think there's this beautiful article I think that I share with you, the AI 2027. I think for me, we are already in AGI times. I think the next thing is ASI, and this is generally very, very capable already. So I'm already at AGI to my definition. But yeah, I wanted to point out at something else that is very curious, and I don't know if you guys have thought about it, or if you have seen, or if you have been following the news in terms of stock. We already talked about the IPO of Tesla, of SpaceX, but were you guys aware of how these companies that are doing chips and RAMs are going through? So I missed those.
Cerebras did the IPO last week, right?
Yeah, but it's not Cerebras that I want to mention. So Cerebras is doing accelerators, right? So GPUs, but I'm talking about Micron, AMD, I'm talking about SanDisk, I'm talking about these companies producing, I don't know if you have seen the stock, but it's kind of like a 5x in 2 or 3 months. And I completely missed that. So I should have paid more attention to it. But the whole thing about these stocks going crazily high, if you haven't really, you gotta see them. Micron, I think, is the one that has increased 600x, so 6 times in the last 2 months. And it's because agents are kind of like breaking this thing that we thought, we need more GPUs, NVIDIA. And now we're seeing that agents actually need more CPU to actually run process, run tools, and actually stay processing for longer. So they don't spend as much time in inference as they spend on CPU and cores. So this is something that is super curious, and yeah, you see all these companies going crazily, and then there's a there's a shortage on CPUs and RAMs and all these things.
Memory, right? Memory, yeah, exactly. No, very interesting. As the whole, as they say with the gold, when people go for gold, there's gold fever. No, you sell shovels. Clearly, these companies are the ones that are making the most money. And whenever people say Nvidia is very expensive, I think they simply keep growing. This is not investment advice, by the way. Anyway, so let's wrap it up with some conclusions or some takeaways. Christian, anything you take away from this session today of Signal?
I learned that fine-tuning is still useful. What about you, Jose?
Yeah, I just didn't know about this whole thing with the individual contributors. I think that talk that we had about individual contributors and capacity and so on, I think it was super interesting to really think about how the roles are changing. It's super interesting.
Totally. And in my case, I love to learn more about how you actually, ship to production more efficient models. I had heard about what you guys were building, but I didn't know the specifics of how you had optimized, the AI shortlisting. And I think it's a very cool example of, I think you go fast, ship things that don't scale, no? Like we did. And if it works and people love it, then we optimize it. I think that's the way to build in 2026. So guys, it was awesome to have you at Signal this week. And yeah, to the rest of the audience, see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. It was really good. Bye, ciao.